Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dennae Handford, and my wife, Dennae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur.
On the podcast with us today, we have Sima Vasa. Sima, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We would like for you to go ahead and get us started here by telling us just a little bit about your background as an entrepreneur and also where your current focus is right now.
Sure. So I've been an entrepreneur. My journey started about 10 years ago, and I started a business in the industry that I really spent most of my career, which is market research. The company that I founded was Paradigm Sample, and it's basically an online data collection play in the market research space. And about 4 years ago, I started Infinity Squared Ventures, which is a company that advises and consults with other entrepreneurs and early stage companies.
That's really exciting. So I'm sure that along that process, you've definitely had some tough decisions that you've had to face along the way. And so one of the things that I want you to get us started with is talking to us about what I like to call a sore thumb tough decision. So it's a tough decision that you've had to make, and you did not end up having a very good outcome, but you did learn a lot of lessons through it, and it's kind of shaped what you do now. So can you share one of those tough decisions with us?
You know, I think the toughest decision for me personally on the entrepreneurial journey is really getting the right resources and the right roles and making those decisions to hire slowly and making those decisions when it's not a good fit quickly. And so, you know, as you guys know, having a company, you end up working with each other side by side, all kinds of hours and through all kinds of adversity. But making that decision when it's not a good fit faster is something I've learned along the way.
Well, I look at that, and I think it's just a topic that is very hard, I think. And I think it's one of the types of things that can either make or break a business is how soon you make that decision. Those are tough decisions of, you know, when to let somebody go and when to keep somebody and just try to cultivate them, or maybe shift them into a different position within the business to be able to, where they might thrive a little bit more. And so I think this is definitely an area where a lot of business owners struggle. And I think that, you know, what I like to know from you is what are some things that you have done to maybe, you know, accelerate that process if you do find somebody that's maybe not a right fit, or maybe what do you do to maybe hire it right the first time?
Yeah, so I think obviously getting it right the first time when you hire somebody is the best outcome, and that really, to me, is a really important.
Done.
Yeah, exactly. But it's such an important part of the process, and so really getting multiple points of view on somebody that we might bring on board. So not just myself and my business partners, but also other employees that'll work side by side, and getting a gauge in terms of fit of culture, consistency of responses, and overall energy level, which is, you know, is it a good fit energy-wise and cultural-wise? And when we do that, we've seen wonders. I mean, the impact on the business is exponential. You know, obviously it's a 50-50 chance. It's still a gamble. And sometimes when the person comes in and they look great and everything, they went through that process and they still don't work out, what we've learned is that we got to really hold ourselves accountable and say, there's a window here that we're going to give somebody. And if that window doesn't work, then we're going to have to make that tough decision. And again, you build a relationship with the person. A lot of small companies or entrepreneurs build and get people from their network. So there's already a history of knowing that person, maybe not specifically for the job that we've hired them for, but in the industry. And it's having that discipline and making sure that, you know, ultimately, I think when you do have to let somebody go, it's really good for both parties, because I do believe things happen for a reason, and that person will go on to find something that's better suited for them, and vice versa.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about your last statement there, and that's something that Dana and I have learned over several years now, I guess, is that when you do have to make that difficult decision and let a person go, I can't think of an instance where it's not, I don't want to say always, because I'm sure there's an exception, but it's nearly always in the best interest of both groups, like you said. That's and right. We kind of had to get to the point where, you know, we realized that we were maybe in the way of their growth and their improvement just as much as they were in ours.
I totally agree. And when you think of it that way, and I believe it to be true, it makes that decision a lot less scary and painful.
So let's talk about a different tough decision that you've had to face as an entrepreneur that had a really good and positive outcome, and some of the lessons you learned through that one.
So I think, one of the tough decisions that I had to make is focus. It's all revenue is not equal. And so even though you have, let's say a client with a huge project, but that project is not necessarily in your core focus, it doesn't mean you should do the project. And we've turned down work where it looked great on paper in terms of dollars and profitability, but it completely distracted us from what our core mission was. And making that tough decision, is obviously hard when you're getting measured quarter to quarter. You have investors, you have shareholders. But in the end, we have definitely seen it gets everybody focused, organized, it's less scattered, and people know what we're marching towards.
Do you have any input or maybe some advice for maybe some of our listeners who might be struggling with where their focus is or where they should put their focus? When you're starting a company, how did you come to find your focus?
Yeah, well, I think when you start a company early on, you're really kind of a product manager, right? You're doing everything. You're putting the pieces together, your service together, you're out there selling, you're having conversations on the negotiation side, and you're executing. And in some ways, if you have a good product or service, those early days sometimes are really rewarding because you might be bootstrapping it early to build that product concept or MVP, and it gives you that focus. I think it gets harder as you hire people and they have ideas and visions and potential areas where they see opportunities. So I think it comes back to making sure you're in sync with your employees and making sure that you go through that strategic planning process and bring everybody along in that process. So those decisions don't distract you as they come up, or those opportunities don't distract you as they come up. It's going through that formal planning in terms of where you want to be in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. Easier said than done.
Sure, again, right?
Yeah. I mean, it all sounds good. I'm listening to myself and saying, wow, somebody could have told me that.
You sound really smart.
On that, though, I think a lot of it is about having the discipline to make yourself sit down and make those decisions and then carry them through. Because, a lot of times we know what it should be, or with a few moments of reflection, we can figure out what it should be. But then there's the discipline of actually acting on that and doing that when, at 24, when you're really busy and you're having to make those decisions actively, that can be tough.
I completely agree with you. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the strategies that you use when you are facing a tough decision?
Yeah. I mean, I think they're quite common. Exercise is obviously a key component to my routine. It's just the time where my mind is free and I am solely focused on nothing but kind of the inner side of my head and kind of talking through some of those decisions and really calming down a bit from the chaos of what you might see in email or text or anything like that. So that's a critical component. Honestly, shutting things off and just being with family and friends and just recalibrating life and just realizing that whenever it's chaotic and it feels like something's impossible, work is not everything. There's so many other dimensions to life. And so I find those two things really centering and they help a lot.
We're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our show sponsors. When we come back, we'll talk to Sima about some of her favorites as it relates to her life as an entrepreneur.
Have you ever thought about investing in real estate but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com. And we are back with this series of quick questions and answers that we call the trifecta. And one of the first things I want you to cover with us, Sima, is your favorite technology that you use in business that helps make your life easier every day.
This is a tough question. I guess I can't say my phone because I think it's a double-edged sword, but it has made my life easier in the sense it gives me flexibility of not being bound to a desk. And so when I rate my best technology, it would be my phone.
I totally agree with it being a double-edged sword, though. It's nice to have because you can be anywhere and still be accessible, but that's also a negative.
That's right. I mean, I have not yielded to getting a smartwatch either yet, just for that purpose, because at least I can put the phone down and away. But when I'm wearing something and I'm constantly being pinged, I don't see the benefit of that yet.
Right. What's a favorite quote that you've heard that has helped you as an entrepreneur?
The only thing to fear is fear itself.
And what's a favorite book that's helped you make better decisions?
The Growth Mindset. And that's helped me for myself, but also when I look for talent and hiring.
So what's the next thing for you, Sima, on your vision or dream board?
So I'm actually in the process of studying for my FINRA license. It'll give me the ability to do some investment banking. I've built a partnership with a middle market M&A company. And so I'm super excited because our industry is going through a lot of change. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been corporate executive. And I think there's a real opportunity to help some people in our industry either raise money or figure out what their exit might be in the future.
And how can the listeners reach out to you if they want to contact you and follow you more?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter. It's at Sima Vasa, SIMA-VASA. They can reach me via email, Sima, SIMA, at infinity-2, and that's the number 2.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. It's just Sima Vasa.
And you can go to our website at toughdecisions.net to find all the links and the references in this episode. And Sima, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us here today. We look forward to continuing to follow you and look forward to having you on a future episode as you continue to grow as an entrepreneur.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.